Imagine driving through a blizzard somewhere far off-grid in Norway. Nighttime is coming in, your wife is pregnant, and you have packed as much food as you would give your toddler for a lunch break in 3rd grade. Since the start, it is very obvious that these characters haven't put much thought into their trip. What would you do if you were snowed in and locked into your car while it's way below zero outside and you have no way to escape? Now, our two characters, whose names by the way we will never get to know, wake up in their car. They have spent the night in there, and by now their car is completely covered with snow and ice. We get to know that they were on their way to the woman's sister, and because it was nighttime and a disastrous blizzard came in, they decided to pull over and spend the night before continuing their journey by daylight. Now, if you have any questions by any chance, I know, me too. Why would you make your journey just before nighttime? And if you didn't and began your journey as early as possible the morning before, then why would you go on a 6-hour car drive with your 8 months pregnant wife, all the while being in Norway in winter? I mean, if you had to do this for whatever odd reason, then at least you would have surely planned ahead. No?
I think we're snowed under.
Just some ice.
Well, not those two apparently. However, I do agree with the following. If you ever get into a situation that makes it too dangerous to keep on driving, well, yes, waiting for better conditions to arrive can be life-saving. But in extremely cold temperatures like those you would find around that time in Norway, you may just keep the engine on. A blizzard is no joke, and being caught up in a blizzard dozens of miles away from the next town can be deadly. So the first mistake our characters made was parking the car without keeping the engine on. Now, some people might argue that that will burn through all of your fuel and you risk being stuck there anyway. Well, that's kind of true. However, you don't traverse the fjords of Norway in winter without taking any precautions, right? I mean, if you travel through the Death Valley in California or the Siberian tundra in Russia, or traversing the Sahara in North Africa, whatever, pick one. You just know that all these places are notorious for their harsh and unpredictable environments, and the same goes for the fjords in Norway during winter. Therefore, it is expected to start your journey with a certain level of precaution. And that of course entails extra fuel for your car. In fact, if we consider that our characters are not Norwegian and that they don't know the environment, the sheer number of mistakes they have made before the movie has even started is quite insane. For example, they have not packed more than a handful of nuts and one sandwich. They have only 2 liters of water, they obviously don't have any extra fuel, they don't have a Miller blanket, and they don't have a heater. Plus their phone, yes they only have one, is low on battery. Now all this screams complete ignorance. You don't need a blizzard to be stuck in the middle of nowhere. An engine fail, a flat tire, your wife going into labor, crashing an animal, all of that is possible. And yet it seems like they have not considered any of that. On top of all those missed points and miscalculations, our characters don't know any better than blaming each other.
I'm sorry, baby. I'm just trying to get my head around this, okay?
I knew we should have kept on driving.
Amazing. What they do at first is going through their provisions. Next to a box of matches and some candles, they have enough food for 12 days and a map with an approximate location where they are. Now if you ask me, there are 2 options here. Either you stay inside the car and hope that someone will drive by and take note of you, or break through the windows and continue by foot. Both ways have their pros and cons, and I know what I would do, but what would you do? I'll give you a quick moment to figure it out. Okay, so what I would do is stay in there for a set number of days. We have enough food to comfortably get by for 2 to 3 days. We also have a lot of water available if we consider that we are completely snowed in. So if we find a way to open the windows just a tiny bit, we could gather enough water to get by as well. However, 3 days would be my limit, because first of all, it is obviously very cold inside this vehicle and that won't really change over time. And second, our food is only enough for so many days, meaning at some point we will get so weak day by day that any sort of intervention on our side just won't work anymore. And therefore, before we would completely become dependent on a third-party intervention, I would try waiting inside first, and if nobody arrives, I would opt for option 2 and break a window to get out of here. However, breaking a window might not be the only option we have. At a later point in the movie, our guy here uses a candle to defrost the window to let it down and scratch off some ice to drink it later. Smart move. But why just use one candle? I would use 4 to 5 candles and toast this window until I can freely open the damn thing. If I can find a way to open a window completely, I will be able to scratch through the ice without having to break a window. Meaning if I then get through the ice, I can manually defrost the ice from the outside of the car and then climb back in and close the window again. Having a phone with me, albeit low on battery, would also convince me to try this out. Connection outside is arguably better than inside here. And of course, I wouldn't make a call, alright? Like our characters, that uses way too much battery. I would send out an emergency SMS that I can pre-write and send it out to multiple people at once. But what do our characters do? "15 days? My good lord, never would I stay in there for 15 days. I get that it's more comfortable inside, but the problem with being comfortable is you don't really get ahead. Yes, staying inside does prolong your life, but if nobody passes by, then you are just going to starve to death. Comfort zone is crippling, okay? You should forge your own way rather than waiting for others to rescue you. Those that succeed are those that venture out despite losing comfort. And if people 10,000 years ago survived naked, ice age, then you can do it too. I mean, look at this scene right here. That's just now look, I get it, okay? Their behavior is clearly motivated by this story right here, because a similar thing happened to this Swedish guy and he survived in his car for 2 months before he was rescued. And that is remarkable, but in my honest opinion, you need a stupid amount of luck to survive this story. Kudos to this guy though. I guess his survival skills are on a different level. I hope he's doing fine. In the case of our characters though, I don't think this is the right way. Our characters have at no point actually studied the map they have. And that is where I and every other reasonable person would begin, right? You need to calculate how long it would take you to walk to the next town. That's the starting point. Also, if you had to break a window to leave the car, then your pregnant wife could no way join you. She has to stay back, and that is a problem. But if you can make it to town within 6 hours by foot, then she should be okay, at least in theory. The reason why I keep referring to 6 hours, by the way, is that this is the shortest period of daylight in late December in Norway, at least in the southern parts, and since we can see that they do have daylight, we can assume that they are not in the northern parts, otherwise it would be pitch dark 24/7, at least almost, and if you're Scandinavian then feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I guess the thing though that I'm hinting on here is that if he can't make it to civilization within sun hours, then he will most likely die. As soon as darkness creeps in, good luck finding your way out of here. No chance. If you make this move, then you have to isolate the broken window to leave your pregnant wife as comfortably back as possible. If you don't, she will keep reminding you for the rest of your life, and you don't want that. There are quite a few things you can do to cover your car window effectively during winter. If you put layers upon layers on the broken area, you will be able to insulate airflow quite a bit. If you don't have any tape at hand to fixate stuff, then I would put layers of snow from the outside over it. It may seem counterintuitive, but that's also how an igloo works. The most dangerous thing about a broken window in winter is the constant airflow that chills the inside even further, and with this method you can minimize that risk. And for the guy that leaves, well, going by foot is not a safe bet, but it might be your only chance. If you decide to do this, you want to start early in the morning, perhaps even before sunrise. Pack your map, if necessary break the window, isolate it with the techniques from before, figure out where north is, and then move your lil ass. To figure out where north is without having your precious Congolese cobalt nourished smartphone at hand, you have to figure out the direction without a compass. But in our case here, we have a map. We also know the street on which we are, and therefore knowing where north is no problem at all. We have everything at hand to make an escape possible. However, our characters don't. And here is what I think about this. I think people who don't leave their comfort zone forget how quick life is able to turn around, for better or worse. You might go on walking 6 hours through the blistering cold, your feet numbing, your face losing all its sensation, and you barely give up. But the thought of your loved ones keeps you going, and just before you can make it across the finish line, you may fall onto your knees. Your vision blurs into darkness just to be reversed with the brightest and most beautiful light you have ever seen. And before you can understand what is actually happening, you find yourself on the back of Articuno. Now obviously if that happens, then you hopefully pick up your wife first. But here's what happens in the movie instead. No mystical Pokemon experience and no DMT machine elves, okay? But we got this. Now, some people might call that magical as well, so I don't know. However, question, what is worse than being caged inside a tiny space with your spouse for days on end? That's right, a crying newborn baby on top of that. And before you come at me at full speed, I love kids, okay? I really do. I love kids everywhere but airplanes, restaurants, and when locked in frozen cars. I hate when that happens. But let's give a round of applause for this dude to courageously maneuver his precious wife through this painstaking event. He even removes a placenta. What a hero. Now, where am I going with this? Well, my fellow breast milk people, how is it going? Listen, breast milk is the thing to feed on in this situation. With this, you will probably last for well over a month. I never thought the day would come that I would research breast milk, but oh boy, this stuff is kind of special. It's the feminine nectar of the gods. Just kidding. But this drink sure is more energizing than Red Bull. Look at this. Fats, proteins, amino acids, anti-inflammatory agents, and a solid 70 calories per 100 milliliter. Furthermore, a woman produces up to a liter on average after 2 weeks of giving birth. That's not per titty, by the way, we're talking netto here. Now, here's a few more things to mention here. Apparently, the breast milk before the baby is born is actually called colostrum. Now, don't ask me about the details, but apparently it's even more nutritious than actual breast milk and is available at halfway through the pregnancy already. Meaning even before the baby was born here, they could have indulged in this very out-of-the-box survival technique. Who is Bear Grylls again? I don't know. Now, people who really love to nitpick may point out that due to stress, production of breast milk may suffer. And that is true, but let's just forget about this, okay? I like my idea. Now, in the movie, our characters are blessed with a newborn. The days passed relentlessly though, and they hit the 20-day mark, and as we expected, they lost the majority of their energy too. And the screaming newborn definitely isn't a help neither. The biggest problem though is that at this point, they have been frozen in for such a long time that they are stuck in a solid block of ice, which is much harder to break through than it was in the beginning. That's something that supports my set day plan as well. If you know that you will leave this place in, for example, 3 days, you can actively prevent your chosen window from freezing. By day 20, they were still burning candles. That means they have many available, and therefore with toasting the windows continuously during the first few days, you would not just heat up the interior considerably, but you would also make it much harder for ice to settle on the outside of this area. Now obviously they haven't done that, and well, this is what happens. In case you wonder why he took off his clothes, well, that is because of his hypothermia. A known symptom of hypothermia is that those suffering from it start to sweat and become really hot, despite the fact that their body temperature falls below 35 degrees Celsius. And that accelerates their impending death even more. And that is what happens. Our guy here dies. Now, we could go into cannibalism, but let's skip that one because it's obvious and I'm about to have dinner too, okay? But of course, that is a possibility, and it would keep you alive for quite some additional time. Now, by now, it's somewhere around day 24 and our character is still stuck, although now arguably alone. She is starting to hallucinate and talk with her deceased husband, and we can't really blame her for that. I wouldn't have much hope left neither. However, I still think leaving the igloo is the best way to go from here on out. But what if the ice wall between you and freedom is so thick that you can't break through? Well, I suggest you pee on it. You might not be able to pee a black hole into the ice, but with the bottle opener from before, we are able to carve through it. It would take some time, of course, but it is entirely possible. And by now, she hasn't done anything for 24 days straight, so I don't think this plan is too much of a burden. At this point, we would all try to get out at all costs, obviously. In the movie, however, something else happens. The sun shines so bright the ice melts away all around the car. What a pleasant surprise. Now here's the real bummer though. She, with some struggle, makes it out and starts walking. Remember how in the worst case we only have 6 hours available? Well, guess what? She makes it to the next house within a few hours only. And that after 24 days of hell, giving birth to a child and even carrying that baby in her arms. All the while it's freezing cold. That's a little hard to believe, but it especially means that if they had broken out of the car at the beginning, they would have saved an easy 20 days, had a great story to tell, and the dude would have certainly survived. But I would like to ask you, what would have you done differently? How would you survive being frozen into your car? Let me know, and as always, I appreciate you for being here, and I see you in the next one.